Hey everybody, I'm dressed up like this with my Beatle haircut for only one reason. Special occasion, 50 years ago today, saw the release of this album in America, Meet the Beatles. There had already been introducing the Beatles on the VJ label, but this is the iconic classic album that we all know goes down in history as really the first important Beatles album, and it's a great record. A lot of you probably have seen my Beatles solo album reviews, and I said at the beginning of those that I'm not really going to concentrate on Beatle album reviews, because albums by the Beatles, let's face it, we all know all the songs, we all know how they are, most of them are great, and there's not much to say about them. But I started thinking to myself, with the impending anniversary here coming up, that why not? You know, why not at least try a routine of doing the Capitol albums in the U.S.? And, you know, we're going to have the CD box set coming out tomorrow of the U.S. Capitol albums. So I figured maybe I can do some Beatle reviews talking about the Capitol albums in the U.S. And they'll be a little different than what we usually hear with the U.K. albums, because there's different sequencing and different stories. So anyway, I was only a year and 9 months old or so when this album was released 50 years ago today. But even though I was only a small child at the time, as I became older, 3 years old, 4, 5, I really became conscious of the Beatles, and I was a fan. You know, my relatives had bought me this album and some of the other albums and some 45s with picture sleeves, and it was the start of where I'm at today. I watched the Beatle cartoons when they premiered when I was like 4 years old. But getting to this album, what can you say about it? It's not the way the Beatles intended it. You know, I think there's going to be a lot to talk about here in defense of the Capitol albums, because a lot of people put them down. They're not really the way the Beatles wanted them. I'm here to do a series of reviews defending the U.S. Capitol series, and we begin with this. Although it's not the way the Beatles may have intended it and Capitol put it together, it's still a great record. Still iconic and classic with wonderful songs on it. And as an American, I've always liked the way the Beatles albums in the U.S. had the 45s on it. You know, it had I Want to Hold Your Hand, the big hit on the album, with the B-side of the single here, I Saw Her Standing There. What can I say about the actual music? Well, I should just take a moment to talk about this iconic picture. Isn't this a great cover? I mean, it's common. We know it by heart. A lot of other bands have imitated this cover, you know, all types of records. I think The Residents and Utopia. But this is almost like Mount Rushmore, right? The Beatles' face is carved like our Mount Rushmore. I Want to Hold Your Hand, great classic song. You can't say anything about it. You might be surprised to know that I'm not as big a fan of I Want to Hold Your Hand as I am of She Loves You, which if I was going to pick from the two, I would prefer She Loves You. I Saw Her Standing There, the song that I have in the background right now. It's a great freaking rocker. One of the greatest songs the Beatles ever did, for my money. And, you know, I don't know what to say. Great vocal by Paul. Great instrumentation by the other Beatles and Paul on bass. Needless to say, it's one of my all-time favorite Beatles songs. Then we go to the song This Boy, which, again, if you were in England, you wouldn't get This Boy on one of the regular albums. You know, it was just a 45, which I kind of like. You know, it was the B-side of I Want to Hold Your Hand in England. But here in the U.S., we came to This Boy from this album. It's a great song. I mean, nice harmonies by John, Paul, and George. You know, we're about to hear it soon. Then you got It Won't Be Long, the song that really capitalized on the yeah kind of phase, and actually started off the album with the Beatles in the UK, as we know. How great is the sequencing here, too? I mean, on these Capitol albums. I mean, even though they're not officially the way the Beatles intended them. I mean, to start with a big hit, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and go into a rockin' I Saw Her Standing There, and then a soft This Boy. And then you get the next song, It Won't Be Long, which just is, like I say, just another rollicking, terrific, rousing number. Then you got All I've Got to Do, which is a song that I also love, a softer song by John. One of my favorite songs on the album. I have no problem with those types of ballady songs. All My Lovin', we know how popular that song is, especially here in the States. It was never issued as a proper single, really, but it should have been. And At least not in the U.S. I mean, I think Canada was released, right, on this green label. Somebody tell me, Dylan Harrison. All My Lovin', great way to close side one. Just want to see how much time I've got here. I've got a couple of minutes. Side 2 opens with George Harrison's first ever composition, Don't Bother Me, which I've always loved. There's just something about it. George always put it down. Of course, you know, artists are their own harshest critics. You know, a lot of good artists never feel like they do their work good enough. George always wasn't too happy with this song, but I can understand why from his perspective. But for mine, it's one of the best songs on this album. Great opener, great way to open side 2. Here in the States, and it's got that haunting kind of feeling to it, just really unusual sounding for the Beatles up to this point. Little Child, love the harmonica, love the excitement in it, the energy in it. It's a great way to have a second song on the album. It comes right after Don't Bother Me, even on With the Beatles. And then we got Till There Was You. Now, Till There Was You, if I had to pick a song that's my least favorite from this album, it would be Till There Was You. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy the song. I do. And I especially love when I see Paul McCartney singing it at the World Command performance in 1963. Paul does a great job with it, but it is an old show tune from the Music Man. And, you know, if I had to put these songs in order from favorite to least favorite, something's got to go least. And I'd probably put Till There Was You as my least. As I say, Paul does a great number on it, and he's really well suited to it. You know, it's his style, really, and he's perfect. Hold Me Tight, that's a song a lot of people put down. Now, Hold Me Tight is not the Beatles' crowning moment, that's for sure. And I know that Adam, on one of the other videos, always talks about, on several videos, talks about how he's not a fan of Hold Me Tight. You know, Hold Me Tight is a song where I don't know if too many people, that diehards, realize it, but Hold Me Tight was actually attempted for the first album, Please Please Me. You can tell that in the Mark Lewis and Beatles Chronicles book. And actually, they never really were successful at it. There's 20-some-odd takes of outtakes of them trying to do it, with Paul getting increasingly frustrated and forgetting the words and everything. But Hold Me Tight, I think it's a good rocker. Yes, Paul sings it a little off-key, a little out of tune, whatever, but to me that's what's unique about it. I really like it. I Want to Be Your Man, my absolute favorite early Ringo rocker. I like the Rolling Stones version as well, but I think Ringo here does a better job than Mick and the Stones. They're both different. They're both great in their own right, Stones and Beatles, the way they do the song. But Ringo is the best, for my money. And I love the way he wails away on this song and really gets into it. I love to see him perform it live. Lastly, Not a Second Time, John's song. Again, a haunting kind of sound to it with the organ and piano and everything. I want to know, is that what they call Aeolian cadences? Anyway, I'm running out of time, but I love Not a Second Time. Thanks for watching. Look out for the Beatles' second album review.